I came home quietly, the way I always did after a ride. Still in my biking gear, holding the smoothie I'd picked up from the corner cafe Mara loved, mango, oat milk, ginger shot on the side. It was barely 7 a.m., and the house was still dim, except for the soft blue light bleeding out from under the bedroom door. I was smiling as I stepped inside. I liked mornings like this, quiet, ours. But then I heard her voice. It was soft, playful. She was laughing, low and warm, but there was something in her tone that wasn't for me. I froze. At first, I thought she might have been watching something, a show, a video, but then I heard her say, "Last night was, yeah, I know. You wore me out. I'm still sore." I stopped breathing. There was a pause, and then she whispered something I couldn't quite make out. And then, clear as day, "I've missed you all week." I felt the smoothie cup buckle in my hand. She laughed again, a quiet, flirty sound, and then said, Okay, I have to go. I'll text you later. Love you." Click. Silence. I didn't move. I couldn't. My heart was pounding, not in the way it did on the trail, but like it was trying to escape. For a second, I thought I might just be wrong. Maybe I'd misheard. Maybe it was someone else, maybe. Then the bedroom door creaked open. Mara stepped out in leggings and one of my old t-shirts, her hair a little messy, barefaced. She looked surprised to see me, but only for a beat. "Oh, hey, babe," she said casually. "Didn't hear you come in." I raised the smoothie slightly. "Got your usual." She smiled, took it like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just been whispering to someone else in our bedroom. I didn't say anything. Just watched her sip it. "I was just on the phone with Lila," she added, turning her back to me as she walked toward the kitchen. "She's losing her mind over this guy she met on that retreat." I stared at her. Lila was at a silent meditation retreat in Joshua Tree. No phones. No talking. I knew that because Mara had complained all week about not being able to text her. I knew that because we'd laughed about how on Lila it was to be off-grid. But now, Mara was lying to my face. Smoothly. Without hesitation. I felt the shift inside me. It was subtle, like something sliding out of alignment. A hairline fracture. I followed her into the kitchen and leaned against the counter. I wanted to confront her. To ask. But the words wouldn't come out. I wasn't ready to hear her say it. So instead, I said, "You doing okay today?" She looked at me, smiled again. "Yeah, just tired." And that was that. I nodded, pretending. But in my head, I couldn't stop replaying her voice, those words, the softness in them. Not for me. And something inside me, something I hadn't even realized was vulnerable, started to harden. After that morning, something shifted between us, or maybe just in me. Mara still acted like nothing was wrong. She made jokes, sent me memes, kissed me goodbye before heading to her studio. But I started noticing things I hadn't let myself see before. Like how she stopped wearing her promise ring. She'd worn it every day for 5 years, a simple silver band with a tiny inlaid garnet. She used to say it made her feel grounded. I noticed it missing on a Tuesday when she was drinking coffee in the living room, legs tucked up under her in one of my old flannels. I didn't say anything, just clocked it. That same night, she shut her laptop the second I walked into the room. I wasn't trying to snoop, I really wasn't, but the way she jumped and smiled too quickly made my stomach twist. "Just working on a new commission," she said, tapping the lid of the laptop. "Client wants it done by next week." "Cool," I said, trying to sound normal. It became a pattern. She'd spend hours at her studio, which wasn't unusual, but now she was suddenly out of cell range for entire afternoons. She claimed the reception in the building was bad. Except I knew it wasn't. We'd FaceTimed from there before. One Sunday, she left around 10 saying she had to prep for an upcoming art show. She packed a tote, grabbed her sketch pad, and kissed me like she always did. But a few hours later, I went to move the laundry from the washer and found something that stopped me cold. A man's watch. Bulky. Expensive looking. Definitely not mine. I held it for a long time, turning it over in my hand. The band was still warm. I didn't say anything that night. Just folded the laundry and kept quiet. Then, a few days later, I found a receipt on the kitchen island. She must have dropped it without realizing. It was from a high-end restaurant in the Pearl District. 2 entrees. A bottle of imported wine. Saturday night, 8:30 p.m. I stared at it like it might change if I read it enough times. Saturday night, Mara had told me she was at her cousin Jess's apartment, helping set up a gallery wall. I had no idea who she'd really had dinner with. That week, she started acting nicer. Overly nice. She made my favorite soup from scratch on a random Wednesday. Bought me a new pair of headphones I'd once mentioned in passing. Slipped a sticky note into my backpack that said, "Thanks for being you, yellow heart." I wanted to believe it. I wanted to feel something from it. But I didn't. It just made me more suspicious. Then came the charm bracelet. It showed up on her wrist out of nowhere, delicate gold chain, with one charm shaped like a small starburst, engraved with "Breathe Easy." I asked where it came from. "Oh, Jess sent it from Prague," she said. A little pre-show good luck charm. But I knew Jess wasn't in Prague. I'd seen her tagged in photos from Seattle just 2 days before, announcing her engagement. I waited 3 days, then texted Jess directly. "Nice charm gift. Mara loves it." Jess responded, "What charm?" I didn't reply. That night, while Mara was in the shower, I opened the shared car app on my phone. We'd linked our profiles back when we bought the hybrid. For emergencies, we said. Now, I stared at the GPS log from Sunday. She'd driven toward the west side. Not the studio. Not even the city. She'd parked for 4 hours near a trailhead that had no buildings nearby. I zoomed in. There was a single house listed at that pin. A rental. I copied the address and pasted it into a notes app. I wasn't proud of what I was doing. I didn't feel powerful or righteous. I just felt empty. And the more I uncovered, the clearer it became. I wasn't investigating out of revenge. I wasn't building a case. I was trying to find out when exactly the person I loved became a stranger. It was a Thursday night when Mara told me she'd be staying at Lila's place to prep for an upcoming group show. She needs help organizing the space, she said, casually tossing clothes into her duffel. I'll probably crash there tonight. Just easier. I nodded, trying to keep my face neutral. Tell her I said hey. She smiled. Will do. As soon as she pulled out of the driveway, I opened the car app. She didn't drive to Lila's. Didn't even stay in Portland. She headed west, way past the city limits, through winding hills and thick trees. Eventually, she parked at a boutique eco-resort tucked just outside the coastal forest, a place we'd once talked about going someday, but never did. I zoomed in on the satellite view. Private cabins. Spa. Infinity pools overlooking the valley. Definitely not an art prep space. I followed, but not directly. I waited a couple hours, drove slow, parked a quarter-mile up the road. I didn't bring anything with me except the small black velvet box from my desk drawer, the one with the old compass pendant I'd given Mara back when she first moved into our place. She had loved it at the time, said it made her feel safe, said it reminded her she wasn't lost. I walked into the resort lobby just before sunset. Everything smelled like cedar and citrus. I approached the concierge, a polished woman with a name tag that read Leah. "I'd like to have something delivered to cabin 6, I said, sliding the box forward. Leah tilted her head slightly. "Of course. Would you like a card with it?" I shook my head. "No. She'll understand." I slipped her a tip and walked toward the resort bar, an open-air setup with string lights and a view of the valley stretching below. I ordered a ginger ale, sat down near the corner, and waited. I didn't have to wait long. About 20 minutes later, I saw them. Mara stepped out of the elevator wearing a black dress I didn't recognize, laughing, that same soft laugh I'd once loved. Her hand was intertwined with someone else's. He was tall, maybe a little older than us. Athletic. The kind of man who looked at home in both a trail vest and a suit. They didn't look around. They didn't hide. She leaned into him as they walked across the lobby like it was just another weekend away. I didn't look away. I wanted to memorize the exact moment it all became real. Leah approached their table with the small box. I saw her open it, saw the recognition flash across her face, saw her fingers tighten around it before she looked up and saw me. Our eyes locked. Her face fell. She said something to the man, probably nothing, maybe a lie, and stood up as if to walk toward me. I didn't move. She took one step. I got up, and I left. No words. No scene. No confrontation. I walked out through the polished glass doors of the resort and didn't look back. I didn't need to hear her explanation. I didn't need to be lied to again. That moment, the pendant, the look on her face, her hand in his, told me everything. Some betrayals don't need shouting. Some endings don't need permission. And some truths, once seen, can never be unseen. By the time I reached the car, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Stillness. Not peace. Not yet. But something quieter. A beginning. I got home late that night and didn't bother turning on the lights. I sat on the edge of the couch, the silence thick around me, and stared at the closed door to our bedroom. Still hours, technically. But not really. Not anymore. In the morning, I got to work. First, I logged into our bank accounts. We had one joint checking and a savings we used for travel. I moved my portion out, froze the cards, and sent a formal notice to the bank to require dual consent for any withdrawals over 500. Next, I changed every password that mattered. Our Wi-Fi, our streaming accounts, our shared grocery app. I unlinked her Apple ID from our devices. I revoked access to my cloud drive, reset the alarm system, and switched to two-factor on everything I owned. By 10 a.m., it was like digitally, she didn't exist. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vengeful. I just wanted control back. Not over her, over my own life. At noon, I drafted an email to her father. Robert Linden was a sharp man, venture philanthropist, former founder of a sustainable energy startup that went public, and the only person in Mara's orbit I ever genuinely respected. We'd worked together on a digital ethics initiative a couple years back, and he'd once told me, "People like us don't get the luxury of ignoring the fine print." I knew he'd understand what this was. Subject line: formal separation, financial and personal affairs, Evan Carter. I kept it brief. Just the facts. Robert, I wanted to inform you that Mara and I are no longer together. I've frozen all shared accounts and taken steps to separate our finances. There's no drama coming your way, just closure. Also, I've been revisiting the work we started back in 22 around independent digital rights funding. If you're still interested in supporting ethical cybersecurity efforts for underserved developers, I'd love to meet. No pressure, just timing. Evan. I hit send and didn't look back. 3 hours later, he responded. Evan, I'm sorry to hear about the split, though not surprised. Your professionalism speaks volumes. As for the initiative, let's meet next week. I've been thinking about that space a lot. Respect. Robert. That was the green light. I pulled out the pitch deck I'd started building months earlier, something I thought would be a side project, a passion thing. I renamed it Carter Digital Integrity Fund. The premise was simple: transparent funding for developers working on privacy-first tools, especially solo engineers and small teams who refuse to sell out to ad networks or data brokers. I started making calls. Old contacts. 2 former clients. A developer I once mentored who had built a secure messaging app now used by human rights groups. Each call gave me a little more air. That weekend, I packed up some of Mara's things. Not to throw them out, just to clear the space. Her sketchbooks, her ring, the charm bracelet, even the compass pendant I had left at the hotel, which somehow found its way back into the house. I boxed it all carefully. No rage. Just efficiency. I dropped it at her friend Alina's place with a note that read, Mara, everything's accounted for. Be well. Evan. Back at home, I opened my laptop and renamed the last folder with both our initials. I called it Archive. And just like that, I started living alone again. But this time, it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like preparation. Mara's messages started coming in 2 days later. First, it was a single text. Can we talk? Then a longer one. I made a mistake. I didn't handle things right. I know I owe you more than an apology. Then came the voice memos. 3 of them. One where she cried. One where she rationalized. One where she begged. I didn't listen to any of them. Just archived them all in a folder I named No Response. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. Ignoring her was easy now. I packed up the last of her things. The sweaters she left in the hallway drawer, a stack of half-finished art prints in the closet, 2 mugs she always claimed from the cafe down the street. I placed them in a box, neatly arranged, every item wrapped in brown paper. On top, I placed the charm bracelet. She'd worn it like it meant something. Swore it was from her cousin. Lied with the kind of confidence that came from practice. I didn't include a note. The box spoke for itself. I left it at her cousin Jess's building with a simple label. For Mara, from Evan. Then I walked out and didn't look back. Instead, I walked 3 blocks over to a small storefront space I'd seen listed online, tucked between a local print shop and a vegan cafe. The windows were dusty, the walls bare. But it had good bones. I signed the lease the same afternoon. It became my office. Not flashy, not open concept. No espresso machine or ping pong table. Just a desk, a clean monitor, a couch, and a wall-mounted whiteboard with 4 big letters scrawled across the top. CDF, Carter Digital Integrity Fund. I got to work. The first week, I met with a few solo developers I'd known for years, People working out of basements, libraries, college labs. One of them had built a browser extension that blocked invisible trackers without collecting a single byte of user data. Another had designed an open-source encrypted group chat tool, but couldn't afford server costs. I gave them small grants. No strings attached. Just faith. Then I brought on a part-time project coordinator, rented a P.O. box, built a clean, no-nonsense website with the tagline, "Fund integrity, not extraction." Every decision I made was mine. Every dollar came from funds I controlled. And every person I partnered with had the same look when they realized I wasn't trying to take anything, just help. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent years with someone who once claimed she wanted meaning, connection, depth. But when it mattered, she chose convenience. Chose distraction. Now, finally, I was building something real. I didn't need to burn bridges or slam doors. I didn't need revenge or chaos. All I needed was clarity and the space to move forward. One quiet morning, I opened my email to a single message from Robert Linden. "Glad to see you doing it right. I'm in." I smiled, closed the email, and got back to work. The past was packed, archived, and returned. The future was mine now, clean, deliberate, and on my terms. It was a small tech ethics conference at a converted warehouse in Northeast Portland, all reclaimed with walls and cold brew on tap. I wasn't planning to attend. I almost didn't. But one of the early grantees from the fund was speaking on a panel, and I figured it was time to start showing my face again in those rooms. I wasn't expecting to see Noelle there. She was standing near a table covered in compostable brochures, laughing politely with two other women. Her name tag read, "Noelle Linden, Logistics Consultant, Green Frame Infrastructure." She looked almost exactly the same, calm, sharp-eyed, poised, except there was something different in the way she carried herself. Less wide-eyed, more grounded. Like someone who had learned not to apologize for taking up space. I almost turned around. But she saw me first. Her smile was small but real. "Evan," she said, stepping away from the group. "Didn't think I'd see you here." "I could say the same," I replied. She motioned to the conference banner. "My firm's presenting on sustainable server scaling." Not exactly the sexiest topic, but someone's got to talk about it. I nodded. "You always were the practical one." There was a pause, not awkward, just waited. "I heard about what happened," she said, lowering her voice. "With Mara." I didn't flinch. Not surprised. Noelle tilted her head. "I don't condone what she did. I just want to say. I always knew something was off, but I stayed out of it." "That's fair," I said. "It wasn't your mess to clean up." She gave a small shrug. "Family's complicated." We stood there in silence for a moment, both watching the crowd, the sea of lanyards, the buzz of too many industry acronyms, the echo of clicky heels on polished concrete. "Still running the fund?" she asked. I nodded. "Just getting started. We've backed a few devs already. Trying to keep it lean and principled." Her eyes lit up a little. "You know, I've been looking for alternatives to the usual corporate tools. My firm's been piloting greener infrastructure, open source, low-impact, privacy-first stuff. Most of it's underfunded. Send me what you've got," I said. She smiled again, this time with more warmth. "Yeah, I will." We ended up grabbing coffee in the little courtyard behind the venue. No awkwardness, no strained small talk. Just two people who had known each other from a distance, now talking about something real. She told me about a pilot project trying to decentralize hosting for small community-run sites. I told her about a developer I'd funded who wrote his own licensing language so big tech couldn't co-opt his work. When the barista called last orders, we both stood up slowly, neither of us rushing to leave. "I'm glad we talked," she said. "Me too." We didn't hug. We didn't make vague promises about catching up again. We just stood there for a second, like two people realizing that, maybe, they were finally in a room with someone who saw them, not for what they used to be, or who they were tied to, but for who they were right now. And that was enough. For now. At first, it was just a few referrals. Noelle sent me an email the Monday after the conference, a short list of eco-conscious startups struggling with data privacy tools. Nothing fancy. No long-winded introduction. Just, "Thought these might interest you. They're trying to do it right." I followed up, reached out, and found myself in calls with founders who actually cared about ethics more than optics. People who'd rather build slow than sell out fast. And every time I closed my laptop, I thought about how rare that kind of trust was, how Noelle didn't just hand over contacts, she shared her reputation. A couple weeks later, I asked if she wanted to join one of our project feedback sessions, just to observe. She accepted without hesitation. From there, things picked up. She started popping into more meetings, offering notes that were always on point, not flashy, just clear. She asked the questions no one else did. What's your fallback if funding dries up? Do you have a data minimization clause in your terms? Are your users informed or just consenting? I didn't ask her to join officially. She didn't ask either. We just kept working. A quiet rhythm started forming. Emails turned into calls. Calls turned into in-person brainstorms. And somewhere between strategy sessions and shared frustrations, something settled between us. It wasn't romantic. Not exactly. But one evening, we were walking along the Willamette River after a late meeting with a nonprofit client. It was one of those perfect Portland summer nights, golden light stretching long, air just cool enough to make you wish you'd brought a jacket. Noelle rubbed her arms lightly and gave a small laugh. Didn't think it would drop like this. Without thinking, I shrugged off my coat and handed it to her. Take it. She hesitated, then slipped it on. Thanks. She didn't say more. Didn't need to. It wasn't a grand gesture. Just a quiet one. We kept walking, our steps unhurried. The sound of water moving gently beside us, the world soft around the edges. Later that week, I found myself looking at the old compass pendant I'd once given Mara. I didn't feel anger when I held it now. Just distance. I put it back in its box, then reached into my drawer for something else, a small pendant shaped like a shield. Simple. Sturdy. Something I'd picked up at a local metalsmith shop months ago without knowing why. I handed it to Noelle after a check-in with a new startup we were both advising. What's this? She asked, looking down at it in her palm. A shield, I said. Figured it suited you. She looked at it for a long second, then closed her fingers around it. I like it. That was it. No blushes, no cinematic music swelling in the background. Just a moment between two people who were done pretending to be fine for the sake of appearances. Two people who knew what it felt like to be dismissed, overlooked, used. Now we were building something carefully, intentionally, that didn't require explanations or apologies. Not a romance. Not yet. But something real. And for once, I wasn't chasing meaning. I was walking beside it. By fall, Carter Digital Integrity Fund had found its footing. We weren't some overnight success story. No viral headlines, no splashy Series A. Just a quiet, growing list of projects, privacy-first browser extensions, open-source accessibility tools, low-energy encryption protocols for small nonprofits. Developers talked. Word spread. We got applications from across the country, people tired of compromising their work just to get funding. I started to recognize a tone in their emails, not desperation, but cautious hope. Like maybe someone out there actually gave a damn. We hosted our first supporter event on the rooftop of the building where I'd leased my office. Nothing fancy, no caterers, no press. Just folding chairs, string lights, and a few trays of good food from a local co-op. I stood off to the side as guests arrived, developers, researchers, one or two journalists I trusted. People who believed in the idea before there were metrics to back it up. And then I saw her, Noelle, walking through the rooftop doors in a dark green blazer, hair down, eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. I raised a glass. She smiled. For most of the night, I stayed out of the spotlight. I never liked speeches. But around 9, after enough people asked, I tapped a spoon on the side of my glass and cleared my throat. Thanks for being here, I said. When I started CDIF, I didn't know if anyone would care. I just knew I couldn't keep pretending integrity was optional. A few nods. Some claps. This isn't about disruption or making waves. It's about building things that deserve to exist. Things that respect people, that protect them, that don't see them as data first. A small murmur of agreement ran through the group. So if you're here, you're part of that. Thank you. It wasn't a mic drop moment, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. As the crowd returned to conversations, I pulled Noelle aside. Got something for you, I said, handing her a small box. She blinked. What is it? Not a ring, I added quickly, and she laughed. Inside was a necklace, simple, like the shield pendant I'd given her earlier. But this one was shaped like an open eye. Etched into the back, nothing hidden, nothing stolen. She traced the outline with her thumb. You really don't know how to do casual gifts, do you? I don't do placeholders, I said. She met my gaze. Good. We stood side by side after that, overlooking the city lights, quiet but not silent. No need to define anything. No pressure to name what was growing between us. Just two people who had seen enough of the worst to recognize something good when it showed up. Steady, unassuming, and real. Near the end of the night, Robert Linden arrived. He wasn't there long, just 15 minutes, enough time to shake hands, nod at the projects, make his presence known. But as he left, he paused beside me, rested a hand on my shoulder, and said, "I backed the right one." Then he was gone. Noelle and I watched him descend the stairs. She turned to me. "You okay?" I nodded. Better than okay. Because I finally understood. Moving on wasn't about closure. It was about direction. And I was already walking in it, step by step, beside someone who never asked me to be anything but honest.